this is Flora and this is Michelle.
Hi.
I had an interview with Michelle a couple years back when she was in people operations in Google, and today and this week she had a business trip back to the Bay Area, so I think it would be a good idea to interview her because she is in product. So I'm very curious what her job is now and how she made the transition into product. What is your title now actually?
I'm still lead strategy and analytics associate, but instead of doing strategy and data analytics for our people process, I'm now doing it for our product, which is Google Fiber, which is the home internet.
Okay, so my understanding is that you are in the product team, but you're still doing the analytical perspective, right?
Yeah.
So then what is the difference?
Yeah. So before talking about the difference, I think I will talk about what's the same. So I think the overall goal of my role, the overall roles and responsibilities are very similar. I am doing data analytics on our existing product, and I'm extracting data insights and using the insights as well as the business contacts that I get from my business stakeholders to make reasonable recommendations to improve my product. What is different from before is that previously I would do data analytics on our people data and work with business partners to understand the nuances, and then the recommendations that I make would then be fed into improving our people process.
Oh, okay. So do you like this job better?
I mean, I've always liked being able to push for improvements, and that has not changed. I think on my during the whole time when I was on my last team, I think I always knew that eventually I want to pivot to a product team because I want to see like physical products. I want to be able to see or be able to touch on our end users. I think that career goal pushed me to make this change.
Okay, but do you think, you know, in product you make more impact than in people operations?
You know, in a way, when I was in people operations, there were recommendations or recommendations that I make that was translated into program launches, and the programs would touch thousands, hundreds of thousands of candidates. So that was a lot as well. Whereas nowadays, the recommendations that I make would touch hundreds of thousands of end users who are buying home internet from us. So I think it's different.
Okay. All right. So, well, I haven't been doing all these career-related videos for a long time, but I think people will still be interested in how you make this transition. Like, what are the things that you have done to make this move? Is it easy to, you know, move from one division to another in Google?
So in my case, it was an internal transfer, and I felt that it was still really hard. The process is very similar to an external candidate, and the interview kind of categories or criteria that they look at were very similar to what I went through the first time when I was an external candidate. So the kind of interviews that I had to go through include like hypothetical, so they would ask you, if this happened, what would you do? And then there were a little bit of leadership questions asking you, like, tell me about a time that you led something or that you influenced stakeholders. They also asked me technical questions, which is what I had last time as well as this time, so I basically did live SQL coding. And then lastly, they asked me case study questions where they could pick any product and tag that onto a case study problem, which is also what I went through the last time. So this is kind of a refresher for me, but I am also at a different level or different stage in my career. So I think the depth that they look for from me would be a bit different. Like the expectations that they have for me would be a bit different from before.
You mean the analytical aspect or the hypothetical?
Yeah, I think both. So for like the more behavioral from the more behavioral aspects, they would expect me to have like influenced a larger group of stakeholders or a more senior level leadership. And also in terms of technical aspects, I do think this time around the questions asked were a bit different, and also for case studies, they were looking for more strategic depth from my answers.
Okay, can you give us an example of hypothetical, like a time when you influence a group of people?
Wait, as in like my answer?
Yeah. You don't have to be like so in depth. Just give us an direction.
Yeah. So for example, on my last job, whenever I do data analytics, it is meant to inform leadership of something, and then there are times that I would see that certain things are not going well. Then I would tell them that, hey, I think we should pivot to a different direction. Or there would be times that I see that some things are going really well, like some programs are doing really well. Then I would tell them that, hey, I think we should expand our pilot. And then I would need to work with my stakeholders and starting from the more like operational analysts and as well as to their leadership level to get alignment on like the methodology of the rollout, the timeline, the needed resources, etc.
Okay. All right. So do you like the job so far?
Yeah, I think it's been very exciting. It is, of course, when you start a new job, I mean, especially in my case, because I pivoted from a non-product team to a product team, and I've never worked on home internet products before, so I had to ramp up on a lot of the domain knowledge, and that was a very fun experience. I learned things that I kind of never thought about before. Like for example, my experience with home internet was very limited to me calling Spectrum and tell them that my internet was down. But nowadays, I learn a whole lot more about how our network works, how our devices are linked to each other, how we interact with customers, how we set our policies, etc. I've gone into like a lot of depth that I've never touched on in my whole career, in my whole life before.
Okay. Well, does this job then change your lifestyle? Like the intensity of the job and, you know, the people that you have to report to, is it different than your previous job?
So in terms of lifestyle or like work schedules, I think we still manage my work schedules pretty well on a weekly basis. We don't work overtime. I think I've never worked overtime in terms of like a whole week.
Okay.
And in terms of the people that I report to or people that I work with, of course, I work with the engineers a lot more now. And I think because of the structure of the existing org and because Google Fiber is a lot smaller than Google, so our interactions are a bit tighter. So I work with the program managers a lot more closely than before. And the other thing is, so like on this business trip, I had the chance to do ride-alongs with our construction staff, with our install and troubleshoot technicians. And yeah.
So as an analyst, you actually went to the job sites with them?
Yeah. And I saw how our internets were installed, how we troubleshoot internet, and I also saw like when our partners were constructing a new site, how we partner with them to set up our equipments. And then all this is, of course, a lot different from what I've experienced before.
Oh, okay. That's very cool. And I heard that you have been reporting directly to Google Fiber CEO right now.
Not so much as reporting, but there are leadership meetings on a weekly basis, and I present during some of the meetings.
Okay. And so do you have any suggestions for the other females, you know, to get more opportunities to expose themselves?
I wanna talk about how like I got here in the first place. So prior to presenting at the leadership meeting where like CEOs and his directs are there, I was presenting to the directors of the business areas where I was like tracking metrics for, where I was making recommendations and improvements for. And so I had been presenting for a while. It had been like 8 to 9 months or something, and it was almost on a weekly basis.
Okay.
And so the leadership team saw that I had very solid data insights. I had very strong relationships with my stakeholders, and they felt that my recommendations made a lot of sense and were very helpful. And then at some point, I guess the senior leadership team, like with the CEO there, felt that they wanted to know what's going on in those business areas for this product. And they told me that we need you to start presenting at that review. And I feel that it kind of, the opportunity came naturally this time, and it only came because they saw that I was prepared for it. I didn't think that I would be sitting at that meeting so soon, but when it happened, I felt somewhat confident that I could handle it, because I've known this data for a while. I've known my stakeholders. I've known the business context for a while.
Okay.
So I would say like always be prepared. No matter which table you're sitting at, which meeting you're going to, always be prepared.
I would ask, how do you be prepared?
So in my case, I owned the whole reporting. I built all my dashboards. I set up and finalized the methodologies. I've been working with like the regional managers, the program managers for many months to understand the data or the trends that I was seeing, and to understand like why is this happening, and to make sure that my recommendations would be accepted by the managers.
Okay.
There were a lot of tiny steps that I took to build up.
Okay. So when you first start doing it, were you nervous?
I think at first it felt more tactical, because there were a lot of tactical questions at first, like what should the methodology be like, what kind of data modeling or like filtering would make sense for our business model.
So how did you, how would you prepare for your first few presentations?
So at first, I mean, even towards later, every time I put together or I refresh my data metrics and put together my slides, I would sync with the program managers as well as the regional managers, to have them see the trends that I was seeing and make sure that I get the business context from them, because I do need them to kind of understand or to accept the trends or accept our methodologies, and also make sure that we align on our understanding of the business context and align on the next steps.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that I understand correctly. So before your meetings, you will sync with the stakeholders, but would you talk with, maybe the directors that you're reporting to? Yeah,
so not yet. I guess a day before our meeting, I would share all the slides, all the materials with the whole group, including the director, who would then have like a day-ish to look at the metrics and let us know if he has any questions. I think what is important is that during the official review meeting, when I do present in front of like the whole group, I do have like the program managers, all the regional managers to back up the stories I was telling. So everyone would be telling the same stories to the directors. I think that was very helpful and very supportive.
Okay. So you would rehearse your thing before and also brief all the information with the other stakeholders. So then when you are talking about the stories to maybe the leadership group, then the people that's in the projects all know what you're going to talk about. Okay. Got it.
And then I guess the other thing is when I do rehearse, like by myself, or at first I would rehearse with my manager, it is very important to think about who are the audience sitting there, and then what is the goal of that meeting. Sometimes the goal is to talk about operational improvement, is to talk about next steps. Sometimes it is to review the overall health of the business performance. So the level of details would be a bit different. So as I rehearse, I would make sure that I think about the key audience in this group, whether it was like the regional managers or the directors or the CEO, what is the level of details that they care about, and make sure that I provide that to them.
Oh, okay. So you make sure you understand what they are going to ask you.
Yeah, and what they are interested in seeing.
Okay, okay. The job search, is it pretty much like the external search? You just search for openings?
Yeah. So we search for openings, we use keywords, or we could also pick categories, which is pretty similar to external job search. And I feel that the process is pretty similar as well, especially in my case, because I was doing a pivot from non-product to product. And so I think the types of interviews that I received were still very similar to an external candidate, and it was not easy. They did not lower the bar because I was internal. I think it was still pretty hard.
Okay, so and how do you make the match? Because even in product, right, there are different teams.
Yeah.
Why did you and Fiverr finally find each other?
Okay. Yeah. That's a very wholesome question. I think when I was interviewing with Fiverr, I had a technical round, and then I met with my hiring manager. And when I was talking to my hiring manager, I felt very natural talking to him. Like I didn't feel overly nervous, which, by the way, there are times that I still feel overly nervous and feel a little bit awkward when I go through interviews. So if any of you feel like nervous during interviews and feel like you didn't do well, I want to tell you that it is completely normal. So with Fiverr, I felt super comfortable when I was being interviewed by my hiring manager, and then later on, at some point, I was also interviewed by a teammate, and I felt very natural and very genuine when I was interviewing with her as well. And when I actually joined, I also felt that I got a lot of support from my team, and also the team was like very chill, very little, almost little to none bureaucracy. I think so. When I go through interviews, when I kind of don't click with the team, I just get super nervous. I don't answer very well. Yeah. And when I do click in terms of the culture, when I do feel comfortable, I perform a lot better. I know that there are people who are just like good at interviewing, period. But for me, my performance depends, and that kind of helps me find the right fit.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty similar to me. So before, last time when I interviewed you, I'm doing all my own projects. Now I'm a realtor. And I felt like I also found my team but really naturally, because we know each other already. So, and when I got my license, I just felt like they asked me, "Oh, do you want to come?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm coming along." Yeah, and I think I like my job too.
Yeah, so I always tell people that interviews are two ways. Like while they're interviewing you, you're interviewing them as well. You should also be trying to find a team that kind of fits your personality, fits your goals.
Yeah, but I think maybe when we have a couple years of experience in the society, it's easier for us to be ourselves. When just college graduates fresh out of school, maybe we'll be a lot nervous about choosing other people because you don't have any faith.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, but do you have any suggestions for them?
I think to start, you should know what you want to do and what you're good at. I think during the last interview when we chatted, I said that you should always find where you want to be at and where you are, and know what your gap is. Only when you know the gap, then you could do something to make up for it. Like back then for me it was SQL, so I self-studied SQL a whole lot. And then this time when I interviewed, for me the gap was, I think, my mental state. At that time I was like very nervous. I had already been looking for a product team for a little bit, and I didn't get anything because I was super nervous during my interviews. That impacted my performance a whole lot. And then I knew what I needed to do was to kind of let go a little bit and to feel a bit more relaxed and stop over preparing. So always know where you want to be and what you have, so that you find a gap and you make up for the gap. And then the other thing is, as you make up for the gap, like consistently do the studies at a pace that is comfortable for you. For example, last time I really needed to catch up on my SQL skills, so I self-studied, I practiced a whole lot. But this time I knew that I needed to make up for like my, I needed to let go a little bit, so I let myself slow down a little bit on the prep process. So and find your pace as well.
Yeah, and that works too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We actually had an interview before, so if you're interested, you can go back to my previous interview with Michelle, and she talked a lot more about interview preparations and stuff. And also Michelle also do coaching sometimes. So if you're interested, you can also reach out to her. Through LinkedIn, right? But yeah, but let them know that you saw Flora's video, so she'll accept your invitation. All right, okay. So thanks for watching. We're gonna go have some good food, right? Okay.